Hello folks, we're lucky enough to live in the beautiful New Forest National Park, which is full of wildlife, and filming it is one of our biggest hobbies. Red deer are my personal favourites, but we film lots of different things. And recently we were given the opportunity to go to a friend's house who owns a woodland. The woods are home to a few roe deer, but the area is very, very active with badgers and foxes, so we took our night vision cameras down and set them up for 2 nights. We got hours of footage, but here's some of the best bits. So this was night 1, and to start with we got lots of glimpses of foxes and the occasional badger running between those 3 trees at the back where there's a small game trail. We baited up the tree stump with some honey, peanut butter, eggs, peanuts and a few bits of carrots and scattered them around the base of it as well. With all those smells, we thought the animals would be racing in to eat. But actually they were quite wary. I think they were a bit suspicious because this isn't normally an area where they'd find all this food. You can see that the foxes in particular are very, very cautious. I'm not quite sure why, but on this first night we saw more foxes than badgers. These 2 were regular visitors throughout the whole night. I'm not sure if they're a pair or maybe they're just older cubs from the same litter. It's possible that they're both youngsters. Surprisingly, for the middle of summer, they both looked very lean, and it made me wonder if they were struggling to find enough food, but either way, they looked very skinny. Even though this is a very secluded and hidden spot, the foxes were very cautious and on high alert all this first night. You can see that they didn't feel comfortable enough to come down in front of the camera and just eat for any length of time. Something else that surprised me with all this food laying around was that the foxes didn't seem to recognise what the eggs were, and they ignored them, concentrating more on just the peanuts and the peanut butter and honey. It's great to see the foxes, but we really wanted to see some badgers. Maybe they're the reason the foxes were so cautious. We kept seeing them jogging up and down between those trees until now, and this is our first badger that visited the site properly and actually stayed to eat. Badgers love peanuts, and the fact that there's honey and peanut butter spread around the place as well, I think this one thought it was all their birthdays on one day. We didn't have to wait too long before this one was joined by a friend. And once they started searching for the food, they found that all the cracks and crevices in the tree stump were stuffed full of peanuts, peanut butter and honey. It was beginning to look like I'd gone without my boiled eggs and soldiers for nothing, and on this first night the badgers also ignored the eggs. Not sure why, but they just didn't seem to recognise that they were food and left them alone. These 2 really seemed to enjoy being here. I'd hidden food everywhere and even smeared honey and peanut butter on bits of bark so they had to turn them over to find them. Remember that it's pitch dark here. Their sense of smell was so good they didn't really miss a lot, and when I checked the following day, most of the food was gone. These 2 were a lot more comfortable than the foxes were. I'm quite happy to spend some time here searching around and just taking their time to feed. None of our natural predators would pose much of a threat to badgers of this size, so they were a lot more calm and relaxed, just took their time and enjoyed snuffling around and finding all the food that we'd left out for them. You can see in the background that it looks like it's getting light, but this is actually still pitch black and about 3 in the morning. Our night gear cameras are so sensitive they can pick up on that change as that very first hint of light starts to appear. You can see here a little later in the morning, it's time for these guys to disappear off home to bed. There's just time for one more final sniff about before they disappear, and you can see the eggs at the foot and on the top of the tree stump that they ignored through the night. This little fox turned up by himself, so I'm not sure if it's one of the original pair or a different animal that's just turned up to check out the area. He's still very cautious, and after he'd had a good look around, he made his way off to go home. He wasn't the only visitor to come back when it was starting to get light, though. A few minutes after he'd made himself scarce, another one of our nocturnal visitors came back to have a final sniff around and a quick snack before bedtime. Hiding the food was the perfect way to keep him in front of the camera, and I'd stuffed all the nooks and crannies on the tree stump full of peanuts, peanut butter, honey and little bits of carrot, which kept the 2 of them entertained for ages. You can see how those strong digging claws helped them find food. I actually felt a bit bad because you'll see on the second night the 2 of them virtually tore that tree stump to pieces. It all worked out well in the end. My friend that owns the land said that the tree stump was a nuisance and it was in the way, so the badgers actually did him a favour by tearing it to bits. There are a large number of badgers that live in the woods, but over the 2 nights that we filmed, we saw this animal, which is a boar, and a sow, which you'll see later on is a little bit paler in colour, that turned up to feed at our baited up tree stump. I came back the following day just to check and rebait the area, and I moved the camera to a different location so I could see up and down the game trail. I also cracked the eggs, and this time they got eaten straight away, so it'll be interesting to see next time we go back if the badgers recognise an unbroken egg as food and start eating them. The badgers were very thorough. Between the 2 of them, they searched every nook and cranny, and I think they must have eaten just about every peanut I put out for them. I'm not quite sure how this works, but the second night was the opposite of the first. The camera picked up lots of badger footage, but not so many foxes for some reason. I'm hoping the badgers haven't eaten the foxes, otherwise this could be a short film. I put some peanut butter at the base of the tree, but if you watch in the background, the other badger is checking out all the trees just in case there's food anywhere else. I'd only put food down at ground level, but they checked everywhere and everything to make sure they hadn't missed any of the peanuts, the honey or the peanut butter. And when I said everywhere, I mean everywhere. Smile, Mr. Brocky, you're on camera. And in case you're wondering where they are, the foxes did eventually turn up. The foxes were a little bit wary around the badgers, but they tolerate each other as long as they keep a respectful distance. We had a really good look at the boar earlier, and this is the sow. Her coat looks to be a little bit lighter than his, and both of them look nice and full-bodied, in good condition, and like they're doing well. For me, the only thing that would have made this any better is if some deer had put in an appearance, but we got some great footage. The badgers checked us out thoroughly, and everybody had a good feed except me because they ate all the eggs, but I think I can forgive them that one. I'll leave you with some footage of this little boar before he makes his way off home to bed, and I'd like to say a huge thank you to a very good friend who allowed us to come and film in his woods. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned on the channel. I've got some more stuff coming up shortly on some footage I did the other morning of some very, very nice red stags up in the forest as they begin their rutting season.